So I'm back with John Gentry, and John, you're an ex-Marine. You were talking about how judges cover for each other. They've got each other's back. Now, as a Marine, I mean, you have each other's backs. Well, what's wrong with judges having each other's backs?
Well, the problem with that is that
In corruption?
they cover up
Yeah.
for these rights violations and
Yeah.
federal crimes that they commit
Right.
Under color of law, and you know. I'm a certified public accountant, but as you mentioned, I'm also a Marine.
Right.
And this is why I am in this fight to restore justice back to our courts through the men and women who have sacrificed and made incredible sacrifices for this nation to preserve our Constitution. You know, from our Declaration of Independence through the present wars. The men and women that serve this country do it because they want to preserve the principles that this country was founded
Right.
upon. And so when these guys trample over rights and deny due process and commit, when we go to a court, you know, we're seeking justice, and instead we find the biggest bully with the most power that we could ever imagine.
Committing criminal acts against...
And this is what they have done to deceive the American people. In the 1970s, we had a huge problem with corruption in our courts. And that's when they enacted 42 U.S.C. Section 1983, 85, and 86. And around the same time, that is when they put in place these judicial oversight agencies. In Tennessee, it's the Tennessee Board of Judicial Conduct. What's yours down in Texas?
State Commission on Judicial Conduct.
Yeah. So I'm a certified public accountant. I did an auditor's compilation report. I used their annual reports, and I proved they dismiss 100% of cases.
Yeah.
I've taken 2 cases all the way to the Supreme Court of the United States, and I have proven that judges always hold other judges above the law, even when they evidence their own misconduct. Because they know when they engage in conduct that's impeachable in nature, the next guy up is going to protect them. And so they when they enacted this, they said this was in Mitchell v. Foster, I think, the very purpose of Section 1983 was to interpose the federal courts between the states and the people as guardians of the people's federal rights. And there were 2 senators, Osborne and Perry, that were talking about this, and they said, you know, they were the main proponents for Section 1983, and they said, you know, all of the apparatus of government to ensure fair due process is skulked away from as if something to be feared. And one of the most dangerous things a person can do is seek justice in our courts.
Wow,
that's scary. And Senator Perry said at the time, you know, judges having ears to hear, hear not; sheriffs having eyes to see, see not. So they knew that we had this problem, and so their solution was to enact federal legislation under 42 1983, 42 U.S.C. Section 1983 through 85, 86. It's trickery. Those statutes are never enforced over bad actor state officials. Almost never. I mean, maybe there's a couple I'm not aware of, but it's never enforced. It was trickery. Now, our constitutions, in the First Amendment of the United States Constitution, says that we have a right to petition the government for redress of grievance. Nobody knows what that means today, and that's what I'm educating people about. What does that mean?
That's the remonstrance.
We have a right to petition the government for redress of grievance. In the Tennessee Constitution, Article 1, Section 23, that citizens have a right to petition the powers of government for redress of grievance by address of remonstrance. So what's a remonstrance? In Black's Law Dictionary, it's a formal written protest of government policy or the conduct of certain officials. So this was what our founders laid down for us. They knew that this was going to happen, and they put that protection in our state and federal constitutions. But the judiciary deceives us. The legal profession deceives the American people, thinking we have to go to them to hold bad actor judges accountable. No. A petition of remonstrance is filed with your General Assembly. It's filed with the legislature.
Yeah, other than that, you don't have any type of independence. You've got people covering for each other. I mean, you don't audit yourself.
Right.
And say that, well, we have an independent audit of my department. I've done it. So I hear what you're saying.
Yeah. So I filed in the Tennessee Congress, and this is what I'm advocating for that needs to happen in all 50 states.
Okay.
And for you guys out there watching this on YouTube, you need to pay attention to this. This is how we're going to heal our nation, is by coming together and petitioning through address of remonstrance. And in Tennessee, I have filed this in. I have the intention of the entire Tennessee General Assembly, 132 senators and representatives. They all know who I am. They all know this is my petition of remonstrance that I filed in there. 72 pages. I'm demanding abolishment of unconstitutional agencies like these Tennessee Board of Judicial Conduct, these Judicial Qualifications Commissions. This is more trickery when they put in these federal statutes that we're supposed to go to judges to hold judges accountable. No, it's supposed to be through remonstrance. They put in place these judicial oversight agencies that we go to the judiciary for oversight of the judiciary.
Yeah.
That's just stupid.
And they dismiss everything, regardless.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So all constitutions say that the sole power of impeachment is with the House. So when they created these agencies, that was an unconstitutional transfer of power from the legislature to the judiciary to provide oversight of the judiciary. Now, think about, why did the framers say the sole power of impeachment is with the House? It's because the House is the most direct representation of the people. It's where we have representatives for each district. There's more of them. There's a lot more of them than there are senators. That's why the framers put in there. And so tricky lawyers, attorneys, went in as legislators. They got elected to legislative seats. And they created these judicial oversight agencies. And that was to take power away from the House and give it to themselves.
So that they could so that they actually would be empowered in their bad actions.
It's to provide
It's to
themselves
provide protection.
absolute immunity. That, well, go to my buddy judge who's on the Judicial Qualifications Commission and say, hey, this judge over here did wrongdoing. And he's like, well, no, he didn't. You don't have any facts. I don't see anything. And they dismiss these cases 100%. It's proven fact using their own reports.
Yeah.
So this is the movement that I'm working on trying to create. I was just watching a Jennifer Lawrence video on Represent Us, and she's talking about how we bring people together is fighting corruption. She's right, but what she's talking about is doing this Anti-Corruption Act. We don't need an Anti-Corruption Act. There's plenty of good laws on the books already, like 18 U.S.C. 241, 242.
Right.
Section 1346 is actually, 18 U.S.C. Section 1346 is specifically for public official corruption and failure to provide honest services. That's what that statute is about. It's a Public Official Corruption Act. It's already there.
Well, we need another one to enforce that one.
And I think these movements like that are more trickery by the establishment, just like 42 U.S.C. 1983 was trickery. They want to give the appearance that they're creating a process for us to end corruption. No, it is deceit. That these movements say we need more corruption acts. We don't need more corruption acts. What we need is the people of this country to come together and remonstrate and demand reform. Every constitution, and Thomas Jefferson said the Tennessee Constitution is the most Republican and the least imperfect. And the Tennessee Constitution says power is inherent in the people. And the government is instituted for their safety, happiness, and well-being. And to that end, they have at all times an unalienable, indefeasible right to reform, alter, or abolish the government in such manner as they may think proper. Doesn't have to be proper, as long as we think it's proper. But the framers of the Tennessee Constitution put in there that we have a right to redress of grievance by address of remonstrance. And remonstrance is defined in Black's Law Dictionary as a formal protest against government policy or the conduct of officials. These idiots, actually they're very skillful at deceiving the public. They fooled the entire United States Congress into enacting 42 U.S.C. 1983. It's ridiculous. We didn't need it. We already have the mechanism in our Constitution to hold public officials accountable. We need to only use that vehicle, which is a petition. And not when I say petition, I'm not talking about signs on the street saying we want justice. No. It is a formal written document with a statement of grievances presented to the clerk of the House and the clerk of the Senate. And this is how we're going to return power to the people. This is how we're going to heal this nation, is coming together as a people and demanding redress. I'm one man.
Right.
One man, and I went into the Tennessee General Assembly and I said, the Judicial Oversight Agency is an unconstitutional transfer of power. They seem to agree because they're going to be sunsetted this year and they're going away. The Tennessee Code Commission is made up of 5 individuals, the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court of Tennessee, the Attorney General, 2 people, we don't know who they are, that are elected by the Chief Justice, and the Director of Legal Affairs for the General Assembly. 5 people compile, edit, annotate, and have authority to propose change to the form and substance of the public acts of Congress. Really? You have 5 people with that much power.
Right.
And then they also have the power to draft and present bills.
But now let me ask a question about that, because they're representative, or they're part of the judicial branch, and they're writing legislation?
Thank you for pointing that out. It is and I've sat with 30% of the House and the Senate for the Tennessee General Assembly in 2019. Mm-hmm. Over 40 of these guys I've sat down, men and women, and I've sat down with and said, you know, this is ridiculous. The Tennessee Constitution says that no judge or attorney general shall sit in legislative seats. And I look at them and I say, why do you think they did that? The framers of the Constitution said no judge or attorney general shall sit in the legislature. Why do you think they did that? I mean, it was obviously pretty important to them. They put it in the Constitution. Right. Why do you think they did that? They don't like separation of powers. And we're like, well, that's the obvious answer. Mm-hmm. But no, the reason that they did it is because they went through the same injustices with the British Crown. Mm-hmm. and with the ministers and the magistrates of the British ministry. And they knew that these guys would legislate for themselves. Read the Declaration of Independence. Mm-hmm. He legislates in unusual places. He creates pretended legislation. These are declared acts of tyranny that caused us to declare our independence from Great Britain. And yet here we have code commissions made up of attorney generals and Supreme Court justices in states across this country. So as I sit down with these guys, they say, we agree. I just met with the director of legislation here in Tennessee. Presently his name's Holt Witt. And he said, it's not because of you, Mr. Gentry. We've been looking at this already, but we have some problems with the Tennessee Code Commission. So I'm not bringing them anything new, but Tennessee Code Commission is going to get reorganized. I'm one man. Tennessee Board of Judicial Conduct being sunsetted. Tennessee Code Commission is going to get reorganized. I'm demanding reforms to restore justice back to our courts. I want judges impeached. And so I've gone to them in my remonstrance, and I've said these judges committed crimes. There must be a hearing before the House, and they must be impeached. And if that happens, then it's going to start to rein these guys in because they've been without power or without oversight for so long.
So these impeachment processes, are they also outlined somewhere? I mean, is this something that you're making up, or is it something that you can say, look, it's right here, this is your job?
It's in the Constitution. The Tennessee Constitution, Article 5, says that the House has the sole power of impeachment, and they shall elect 3 members to prosecute impeachments. So the process is simple. Somebody goes in and alleges a crime. This judge did a crime. Mm-hmm. The House elects 3 members and said, okay, you guys go see what he has to say about how they committed this crime.
Should these 3 members that are elected, by the way, also be non-attorneys perhaps?
Absolutely,
okay.
Absolutely. And in my remonstrance, I've demanded disqualification of all members of the bar. Okay. Because I'm attacking the bar because it's corrupted.
Right.
And the judiciary
and we don't need somebody from the inside not protecting the bar.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and I'll tell you, Representative Garrett, who is an attorney, actually here in the same town I live in, he's my representative, he disqualified. So if I've got a representative disqualified, certainly there's a basis for disqualification. Mm-hmm. He agrees with me that he has a personal and pecuniary interest. Yeah. And he's disqualified out of this matter. So this is how we get what we want in this country. This is how we reform our nation and return it to the Republican character that it was founded on, was by petitioning through remonstrance, a formal written protest. We don't need to go get bills or legislation through there. We need only remonstrate to our government and say, we're demanding reform.